Hi, my name is Jordan Severino, and this is my Flappy Bird final. I had done this with Juliana Urcioli. To kick it off, we started with the var current scene equals zero. So this is basically so we can set a different screen for whatever we're looking to do. So current scene is set equal to zero, and then the game is set equal to two. We have the var timer equals millis. This is just so we can have a timer so you can see how long you've been alive or how long you've survived in our game. Variable game over equals false boolean function. So basically, this is just so we set it equal to false. So if game over ever equals true, we make the entire game stop and come up and display a screen showing that the game is over. This is the variables that we use to draw our bitmojis. Oh, this is my Bitmoji. This is the variable for top tube and bottom tube. Unfortunately, we had hard coded these. We had realized that we should have used an object call function to kind of set this up, and then use the constructors and the um, a constructor function, and then use an object call to kind of set it up better. But we ended up hard coding it and having to make it into an array at a later time. This is Juliana's draw Bitmoji function. To kind of start it off, we copied some code from the Hopper Beaver class assignment that we had officially worked on for the Frogger assignment. So we made it into variable bird, the prototype draw, prototype hop, and fall. So basically, this just displays like how high or how fast they're going to be going up and down. This is our bird prototype check for hit. This is essentially what allows the game to see if you run into something. So this dot x is greater than or equal to 2x minus 40. So it's basically just the size of the tube itself. If it's to touch anything around that rectangle, it's going to count it as a hit, and then game over is going to equal true, as you can see here. So we set that into a if statement, and then set it to game over equals true. Um, then we go down. We set a new iteration of bird. Set them at 200 to 300. This is just the button configuration, the constructor function that we had borrowed from previous assignments that we had done. So this is just the code that we had used, the prototype, handle mouse click is mouse inside, etc. This is the variable start button, new button. This is just us calling a new button and naming it start button, so we can call it in the diff. So we can call it in our uh, splash function or our splash screen. So we just set it right here. So when you click on it, currency equals 2, and the timer will only begin once you click that button. I set in the on click function. This is basically just what we used as it's not exactly a button, it's more of like an aesthetic choice. So we just have it so the instructions are here, and then you just follow along from there. This is the mouse click function. So once you click the start button, then it's gonna handle mouse click and refer back to the constructor function up top. This is what we used for the grass that we had borrowed from a different array. So then we get into our first for loop, which is just referring back to the borrowed code that we had used um, for the grass here. As you can see, it just continues to go on. So then we start getting more into our tubes. So this is variable tube access. We set it as an empty array. So then we get into our for loop, so we can be able to push those in one by one. So we set variable j equal to 0. J is less than 100 than j plus plus. So we basically space this out about 350 pixels apart. So for every 350 pixels, you're going to end up getting another tube one after another. So then we set two more. There was an issue that was coming up, so we had to make two more empty arrays, two bottom wise and two wise in general. So we had to do for variable I equals 0, I is less than 100. Do two wise push and bottom wise push. So it's basically just messing with the wise of the top The top tube, and then the Y's at the bottom. So basically, it leaves just enough space for the character to be able to safely make it through. Otherwise, it was going to just meet in the middle. So we make it so every time a new tube is pushed through, the character has enough comfortable space to be able to comfortably jump up and down and make it through without being forced to hit the tube. This is just our variable splash screen, the color that we had set. We color bar, two bitmojis, the name, the instructions, etc., and then the two buttons that we had drawn on the splash screen. Then we get into our draw function. Current scene is set equal to 0. So if current scene equals 0, then you will have the splash screen. So current scene is naturally 0 until you click the start button. Else, if game over equals true, the Boolean function will activate this screen right here. It will display game over, and then a little taunting. Our Bitmoji is kind of taunting you to try to do better in our simple little game here. And then we have return. So basically, what this does is it stops the game. So if you just try, like, if you run into something, return basically allows. It's not really returning anything, so it basically just forces the entire game to display whatever we had it display in text, and then just stop the entire game along with the timer, so you can see how long you've been alive. And then the else. This is basically just everything else we kind of didn't really have. So it's just like the for loop that allows the grass to kind of be in the position that we wanted it to, just coming in one after another, just with no spaces in between, just constantly coming through. -1 speed. Then we have variable num tubes. So this is basically just how many tubes are actually in the game. So I set a for loop variable j equals 0. J is less than num tubes. J plus plus, we basically had just assigned it. So tubes x's, so basically all the x's of the tubes will be coming in at -1. Once 10 tubes have crossed past the y plane or the x plane, then it will go to the speed will go to -2, and after 20 tubes, the speed will go to -3, and they will maintain that amount until obviously you get past 100 tubes, and at that point you basically won the whole game. This is just us like calling in the tubes one after another. So tubes X is J, tube Y is J, and it's just pushing in everything to make sure that it's coming in one after another. And if key is pressed in the key code 0, which is the spacebar, bird, hop, everything else. So if you aren't clicking the spacebar, it's going to fall. And this is just drawing the bird right here. So that basically concludes our code for our Flappy Bird.